Good morning, Rebels. Hope everyone's doing well out there. I'm going to kick things off with a little bit of meta news today. I'm still trying to figure out my posting schedule for all of this. Right now, it seems like I'm falling kind of where I did last week. I think, what is today, Wednesday? No, today's Thursday. And I'm going to try to get it out by the end of the day today. Some videos may have more editing than others, but I can't imagine that's going to really push me back too much as far as production time goes. I'm trying to think about like the things that I want to add to this, because I know talking about music and stuff like that, I can probably put up like album art and some of the posts and whatnot. Probably won't. I might have that today. I don't know. I'll figure that out when I get to editing. Anyways, I think I'm just going to jump right into it. So I wanted to talk about my album of the week, which is near and dear to my heart. It is The Death of Me by Polaris, and I definitely love this album. It was one of my top ones of the year for sure. And if you don't know Polaris, they're an Australian metalcore band. They've been slaying it. I'd say they've definitely brought some much-needed life into the scene. You know, metalcore was kind of having it rough for a little while after everyone started, shitting out the same sound a million times and kind of really not innovating. But there's definitely still people out there in the genre who are really bringing it, and I can't. They do that quite well. I've been following them since The Mortal Coil, which was their 2017 album. They've been making music since, I think, 2012, I think, something like that. It's like 8 years or so. And, I'm not as familiar with their earlier stuff, but I know I really did love The Mortal Coil. That album is also an absolute awesome album. So check that out too if you haven't. I really liked this album because it felt very heartfelt, very genuine. It was just kind of you could really feel the frustration that they all experienced. There's a variety of different subject matter that's kind of touched on throughout the songs that they wrote there on that album, but they definitely have some good ones. I'd say the ones that I liked most off the album were Hypermania, which was a good time, Landmine, which is excellent, Vagabond is also really cool, and Above My Head I really enjoyed. The whole album's really good though, so definitely give that a listen if you haven't already. Next I wanted to talk about gaming, and I'm thinking about it going forward. It's like I haven't really been playing a ton of games, so I may not have a ton of content about this kind of stuff going forward. It'll just kind of depend on what I do, more or less, with my time. I've been kind of trying to stay more focused on music stuff, and that's where I've really been delving most of my free time into, and I've recently got a tablet, so I've actually been learning how to draw as well, and that's been fun. Just been kind of pouring hours into that, trying to figure shit out, doing some gesture drawing. That's actually been a lot of fun. But anyways, I wanted to talk about Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I actually didn't have to pay for the game. It came for free. I believe it was with my CPU when I built my new computer, and I probably wouldn't have bought it otherwise because I don't know. It's just like this series has been around for a while. I felt like it kind of grew stagnant after a bit, but I enjoyed my time in it. I played a nice lady Eivor, and she was a badass the whole time, which was really fun. I made it probably about halfway into the game. I ended up kind of tapering off on it because Cyberpunk came out, and obviously that stole my focus for, I don't know, the 40 or 50 hours that I put into it, I think. But it was interesting enough. I definitely thought it was a cool take on things, playing a badass Viking. It definitely went in a different direction than I expected. I was expecting it to be a lot more like, frozen wasteland kind of environment, but it actually is very lush and green because you end up playing in England for the most part, as you expand your colony, which is an okay thing. I don't know, I felt like the base building mechanics in the game were just alright. They gave you a sense of progression, I guess, and they were interesting at least, but it's not the kind of stuff that I normally get into a whole lot in games, but it's there. But the biggest thing I wanted to mention, though, is just more or less the formulaic approach that Ubisoft takes to their production with games, and this is really the issue that I've had with a lot of their titles. I'm not really fond of it. I think that, I had the same experience back when they released Assassin's Creed Black Flag, which it's also worth noting, I haven't touched the series much myself and since about Brotherhood. I played this back in the day, and I was kind of tired of what they were going for, so I stopped playing. I haven't played any titles up until this one, for the most part. But you know, it's like they keep releasing the same thing over and over, and they do occasionally like innovate and change things and kind of make things smoother and newer, but they have a very, very similar feel to them. And with games like this, I really think they could have done well just to, like, they can use the same engine and everything and just make a new IP. I don't understand why they don't do that. Like, I think that would actually be a more interesting way for them to kind of approach their games. Even if they have a very similar feel, you know, I think it'd still be better to make just like Vikings the game as opposed to stapling Assassin's Creed into it, which is even like something that I really didn't get in the context of the game world too, is that they really just kind of did exactly that. It's like you get to play as a Viking, you've got all of your shit going on with that, and all of a sudden it's, let's throw the assassins in here. You know what? They're relevant too. Here you go. Have a wrist blade. It's like, okay, I guess, which is fine. It's just, I don't know. It just seems, it's still played like an Assassin's Creed game at least. So I guess there's that. It definitely had more like to the combat, because the weapons are like, you know, more axes and spears and shit like that, which is cool. I dig that for sure. But you know, I just actually wanted to see, what do you guys think? You know, as far as formulaic game making goes, you know, a lot of companies are guilty of this, but I think Ubisoft is one of the big ones. Them and probably EA are the first two that come to mind. But you know, like, what do you think about content that comes out all the time that's more or less the same game, just kind of with a new color palette, if you will? Yeah, let me know. Lastly, I wanted to talk a little bit about social media, since I'm just kind of just starting to get into it. I've more or less like been on there a bit, but not really like engaging with it or really putting a lot of focus into it. And you know, I really am trying to figure out how to make friends and how to really just kind of like start to network and have interesting conversations. It's weird because I used to do a lot of social media when I was younger, and I really got into it as a kid, but now in my adult life, I feel like I've just kind of grown distant from it, you know, and it feels, and I don't want to say, I don't know, kind of daunting in the way that like it's difficult for me to find people with similar interests and, you know, people who do things that I want to talk about and just stuff like that. It's just, it's kind of, and I'm thinking mostly about Twitter in particular, because that's where I've kind of been more or less working in as of late. But I don't know, it's an environment it can be kind of toxic at times depending on your circles. Like there's all sorts of drama. Like I know streamer Twitter had been cancerous for a little while. There's of course all of the news that is pretty much stapled right to the front page more often than not. And you know, I find it that it's really kind of like normie centric in a way. Like a lot of the content that's just immediately available, just without like finding people who are aligned with your interest. What they give you on the surface, like if you go to try to explore it, is really just kind of like, here's sports and entertainment, you know, like, and like I could care less, like couldn't care less like about that shit at all. Like it's like, okay, whatever. So I don't know, like I'm trying to figure that out and kind of reach out more and explore the wonderful reaches of the internet. I've always been really fond of Reddit. That's always been kind of my go-to place, and I'll occasionally post on there, but you know, like I mostly lurk, and that's how I've always kind of been about things. But you know, lurking isn't a good way to really like build friendships. It's it's kind of limited in that regard. Anyways, if you guys do have Twitter, find me on there. Just recently updated my username. It's AWW_gods. There wouldn't be an underscore, but some asshole from like 2014 who hasn't used his account still has the name, so I guess we'll just have to patiently wait for Twitter to get rid of him. Anyways, I'll post that and my other links in the description below. Look forward to hearing from you guys and talking about some interesting stuff. But that's all I've got for now. So until next time, see ya.